You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 67. My name is Clark of 5 Card Guys on Instagram, and with me co-hosting is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess. Okay, off the top guys, I saw on the Card Porn feed the other day their post about Beckett Grading Services, and they noted that other collectors have mentioned how Card Porn was too hard on them, so they made an attempt at a more constructive post. Now, I don't want to talk about Card Porn specifically, although I know people have strong opinions about how they treat grading companies not named PSA, but I'm not naming names, but I did think their question of what can BGS do to improve was an interesting one. And John, you asked us last week about whether we think will BGS get to the point where their Gem Mint graded cards can close the gap in how much PSA graded Gem Mint cards currently sell for, right? Plus, I know there was a Gem Rate Instagram post showing the number of submissions drop significantly, especially in comparison to PSA and SGC even. So I think it's newsworthy, it's relevant right now. So let's dive into it a bit and talk about what we think BGS, Beckett Grading Services, has to do to be more competitive again in the grading card space before they become irrelevant, to tell you the truth. So yeah, what do you guys think? Any thoughts off the top of your heads?
I personally think coming from a marketing background, it's a branding thing. And from a branding perspective, it's who you kind of like represent, the credibility you have. And in this day and age with social media, content is king. Right? Yeah. You got to constantly push content, relevant content. And Beckett has such a rich history, and they don't share it. They don't get it out there for people to know these things. And that's part of your branding and connecting it. And I feel like that's where Beckett is really lacking, because I know for a fact BGS is very needed in the hobby. Mm-hmm. Like they are, I guess, the Pepsi of the soda industry, if right. You compare it to Coke, right? And it complements with PSA, and it's needed. So I hope that they could figure it out, and I know from a branding perspective, it'll open up huge possibilities in terms of how they represent themselves and kind of like the space they have and the respect they get in the hobby, essentially, right? So it's part of that that they have to create through their marketing, essentially, sure. Right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I agree. I think BGS, in terms of marketing and what they've done to stay relevant in the last 20 years, certainly you probably view them sort of more like a dinosaur. They're the old, the old granny that got left behind, the boomer. But to be honest, I don't know, because I don't know the inner dealings of what's happening at BGS. It seems like it's been a bit of a show. What's going on in the background, whether, like employees are losing their jobs, they're cutting workforce, they're like super behind on their orders, even though they don't have that many orders. So I really don't know what the answer is. I mean, because they do have to kind of fiddle with their brand image and brand marketing as well. So you can't just sit there and go to like $15 slabs. I mean, that would probably be a very easy answer, but without thinking sort of the complexity and the nuances of their branding. I mean, number one, you got to get back to the basics. I think at least deliver on promises and deliver a lot quicker. Get into the sort of the 30-day range. And then pricing. I don't think BGS at this point deserves to be at the same pricing as, I don't know what their pricing is. Sorry, I might have missed that. But I don't think they shouldn't think that the pricing should be on the same level as PSA. Right. I think they should go a lot lower to kind of recapture a lot of value. And maybe, offer subgrades for free rather than it being an upcharge. They got to do something to kind of stand out. So I don't know what the real answer is, but that would be like a quick and easy take.
Yeah, for sure. I think I just wrote a couple of points and you mentioned them both. Faster turnarounds and cheaper service. Like take a page out of the SGC playbook. Right? And I just actually got an email from the person I gave my Trae Young autograph Origins card. Remember I talked about this months ago.
Yeah.
And I just got an email like literally this past couple days saying, hey, we finally got it back. And I submitted that in like November, December of 2020, right?
Holy cow.
I even got my PSA subs back quicker than the Beckett one. And, exactly, like the service is like, we just didn't know where it was in the process either. And you're just like waiting month after month. So they got to definitely work on communication as well, or customer service, more specifically. And yeah, like I think, I was walking by, for all you Canadians, I was walking by like a Roots store the other day, and I was thinking the same thing about Roots that I'm thinking about Beckett. Like you can't live off your legacy name forever.
Right.
I'm like, and I walked to him. I'm like, man, maybe I'll find a cool retro Roots shirt that I could rock, in the summer.
Yeah.
And A, nothing fits me. It's just large and extra large, right? And then, and B, like no one's in the store, like they're resting on I feel like they're resting on their brand name. Right. And Beckett's kind of similar in that fact where, you can only go so far, especially when there's new competitors seemingly popping up, every month, every year. So I think definitely Beckett, like you said, Hyung, off the top too, like they got to start marketing themselves better. And yeah, I love BGS, so I'm rooting for them. So hopefully someone from Beckett's listening to this podcast and writing down notes. All right, you know what? With that, let's move on to hobby headlines. And today we're going to talk vintage sports cards. We hardly talk about vintage sports cards, but we've been saying in past episodes during both bull and bear markets, a solid investment in the sports card market is in vintage sports cards. Now, on the Card Ladder app, which I subscribe to, they have this ongoing index which tracks the aggregate daily value movements of cards across a number of categories, okay? And not surprisingly, in this bear market, across all sports, the market is trending down. It's just red, right? But only two indexes over the past month have shown a slight increase. One is hockey, which could probably be because of the latest playoff push, and the other is the vintage sports card market. So yeah, let's talk about vintage in this episode. If you had a healthy budget right now, which cards are you looking to target? Which ones are your personal favorites or even grail cards? And maybe we can name a couple so that, we don't all say the 1952 Mickey Mantle Topps rookie card or the Babe Ruth Gaddy
that card
rookie card.
was like so iconic when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Like because it was, you look at the whole Beckett price list and it was the most expensive card listed, right?
I remember.
It became such an iconic card, I think, for everyone. So I know the 1952 Topps, but I would even say, the 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle.
True.
I think that's a card that if you have the budget is such an awesome card that's not as expensive as the 52 Topps. So I think that's a good. There's so many options when you deal with like vintage, and it's a different ball game, right? And but I do believe there's like some great deals like I like 1948 Bowman Stan Musial. Like for me, Stan Musial is like a legend and very, very affordable. We're talking, probably $1,000 for a reasonably graded, 1948. And that's as vintage as you get. I think you stated vintage as early as 46.
Yeah, I was looking at the Card Ladder app, and yeah, they define it as some between 1946 and 1983.
80? Oh, 83. Okay.
83.
Yeah. So for our case, let's just say anything before 1983.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you guys could go. John, you could go ahead. I mean, I have a list.
There's tons. You can pick up from like all types of iconic Jackie Robinson and football like Jim Brown and stuff like that. There's a boatload that you can go to. I'm just going to pick my actual personal, I don't own these cards. But if I were to, like Clark, you said off the top, if I had the money to spend right now and I'm going in, these would be the 3 cards that I would buy. Bit of investment, but it's a more PC sort of thing. It's just because for one reason or another, I like the card or I like the look. So for me, it's 1980 Topps Bird Magic
it's
Irving combo.
Iconic.
Yeah, that's number 1. Obviously, like a PSA 10 is completely in a different stratosphere. So whatever grade that I could afford, that would be one card I'd like to purchase. We're going to go to hockey next. It's 1951 Parkhurst Gordie Howe.
Nice.
Not that I watched Gordie Howe or, he was one of my childhood heroes or anything like that. Nothing to do with that. I just love the card. I think because hockey got popular a lot later on, sort of like Gretzky and on. When you look at, it's so rare to see a hockey card that looks like those like 1930, like Honus Wagner cigar cards. Like It's got that look, like that supreme vintage baseball look. So there's just something about that card. It looks really, really cool. Massively expensive. I think PSA 1s go for like $6,000. But whatever you could afford, I really like that card. And then on the baseball side, again, I mentioned this before, for some odd reason, I love the 83 Topps Tony Gwynn. He was nowhere near a favorite player of mine, but there's just something about that card. This one has got to be a PSA 10. It's come down enough where it's relatively affordable. I think it kind of goes for the 2,000, 2,500 mark. Yeah. 83 Tony Gwynn PSA 10. I love the color blocking. I love everything about that card.
Yeah. You named one for me already. For me, the Jackie Robinson 1948 Leaf rookie card with the yellow background.
Right.
So distinctive, so iconic. I looked up its PSA 1. It's going for $6,000. So yeah, even the PSA 1. And that's the thing about vintage. Like you got to get out of the mindset. With modern, it's like, the PSA 10. Screw the PSA 9. The vintage is like, PSA 1's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's grade worthy. So that's all I need to know. And like with vintage, like every subsequent grade up, especially with PSA, it's just like exponential for some of these vintage cards, right? So
sure.
I would love to have that in my collection. And you look at more specifically the baseball vintage cards, like they haven't gone down as much as the other sports card markets. Like
for sure.
Basketball, like I just like the 1980 Larry Bird Magic Johnson rookie.
Gone down a lot.
Yeah, like there was a pop, that just like that's what that basketball cards in general saw, that kind of pattern. Whereas baseball cards, I don't know if it's a longer history, so people that are into it are really into it.
Right.
It wasn't part of this whole inflation of the hobby hype the past few years. So yeah, they haven't gone down a lot in terms of value, because these baseball vintage card collectors just hold.
I also feel like the baseball vintage market, it's like pre-70s. It has to be pre-70s, right? So we're talking majority 40s, 50s, 60s and vintage value. Whereas when we're dealing with the 70s era and then you bleed into the 80s, I think this is where it kind of like it really loses its value quicker.
Pricing wise, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Speaking of which, like my other card was the Cal Ripken. I talked about this 1982. I was going to say that too.
Yeah, such a sick card. Yeah.
PSA 10, and that might be the exception to the rule, where the value has been holding fairly steady. $5,000 for PSA 10, and then going back to real vintage, Ted Williams 1939 play ball.
I like that. I had that on my list. Yeah,
the black and white, kind of like pretty iconic, and
pretty affordable.
Yeah, like $5,000 for PSA 2. You know what I mean? Like that's for a card in its 1930s card. You know what I mean?
Greatest hitter, of all time.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, do people realize how hard it is to hit 400 in a season? Is anyone else going to do that ever do you think?
I don't think so. Olerud got pretty close now.
He was flirting. Yeah, 363 that year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few other guys that flirted, I think, but I mean, he was doing it like no biggie.
Yeah. I heard like, I don't know how true it is, but Ted Williams could just see the seam on the ball, just knew the pitch just by this. He could slow it down in his eyes for somehow and knew what was coming half the time.
I wouldn't even be surprised because like now that I like analyze baseball swings, it is like almost like impossible at what these guys, it's like superhuman power hitting,
right.
100-mile-an-hour fastball, and these guys do it on a daily basis, and it's an ability to literally like slow down your mind that slow, right? So I wouldn't even be surprised if that was like his superpower, and that's why he is such a good hitter,
Dominating, yeah, for sure. Hyung, do you have a couple more?
You know what? For me, 1968 Topps Nolan Ryan was always like the Jerry Koosman. The
duel.
That was an iconic card for me.
Right.
Growing up, because Nolan Ryan was the guy. Like for me, like the whole 5,000K, like ripping Red Donruss 1990. Like getting the 5,000 strikeout card was big for me. So Nolan Ryan was always a impactful player for me growing up. A 54 Topps Hank Aaron. That's always on my kind of like watch list, going after that card one day. I always say it, but then we always go to modern, right? Because it's just like more shiny and volatility. And we're like, like it's a lot more fun when you're, involved in the modern game. But yeah, I think there's so many options. Like I know like guys that collect like the T206, the Cigar Piedmont set, like 524 cards. Like obviously you're not gonna get like the Honus Wagners and stuff like that, but like it's very affordable to go after the non big stars in that set just as a set collecting. And I think that's a super cool set if you even had like 20 or 30 of those of the 524 cards, cool. Right? Yeah. So I think there's a lot of like ways you could be creative in collecting vintage without like having this kind of like snobby I'm all about the shine modern cards. So, and like I said, we said it on the podcast, we feel like it's a great, like vintage is going to be a great investment moving forward, right? So yeah with
vintage too, like it's, for me at least, it's historical art more than anything,
for sure.
You know what I mean? And man, it's hard to imagine the current modern and ultra modern cards having that same impact.
100%. Yeah.
50 years from now.
I was actually thinking about that with the T206. That's why I brought it up, because it was like, what made this set so special? It's like if you look at like the printing quality, it's like that was unheard of in that day and age. And it just takes you down like, history, and then you're just like, wow, this is amazing, that you kind of like feel that nostalgia, like just floating around. So I 100% agree that it's all art history, really,
Yeah. In some ways, technology made things worse for the hobby.
Always. But it's a balance, right? You got to be balanced. You can't.
I'm not anti-technology. Yeah. Let's get that straight.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. We love to hear actually from our listeners who collect vintage, like really collect vintage, because I'm sure we missed a ton of other great choices. So yeah, please let us know and DM us on Instagram at Cards to the Moon, and we'd love to talk about it in a future episode as well. And for me, it's always like to be honest, I don't have one vintage in my collection right now, but it's always one I want to really work towards. You know what I mean? Like, can I flip enough cards and just like get one really nice PC vintage that I could just hold and, just show off whenever possible. But yeah, and it's crazy. Like you look at the card ladder, or you look at any statistics, like how well vintage sports cards hold up even in this current market.
For sure.
So let's move on now to our next segment we're calling Overrated, Underrated. It's our first time doing this segment, but the title is pretty self-explanatory. For this episode, I got a list of different types of sports cards, and I want you guys to say if you think they're overrated or if they're underrated and why. All right, let's begin. Okay, first, in terms of types of card, quad patch cards.
Quad patch cards. So are you meaning? Does that mean like
you know those 4 squares?
Yeah.
But it's like one patch, or is it different patches, or is it different material?
It's probably different patches, right?
Usually, yeah, they're like different colors.
Or are you talking about like multicolor patches?
No, like 4 separate windows.
Like windows? Oh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jeez.
Is that from like Topps Museum or?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Definitive?
Yeah, I've seen them. I didn't know it was a thing though. So quad patch card.
I feel like I already know your guys' answers.
Well, if it's quad color, then I'm like, heck yeah. Like quad color patch, but I don't think that's what we're talking about
we're
here.
not.
So I'm gonna say it's definitely
overrated.
Overrated, I guess.
like, can it be overrated when it's already trash?
Yeah, that's what that was a trick question because I was like, is it underrated? Because
hey, I'm sure there are collectors out there that collect these multi-patch cards.
Right.
Come on.
That's interesting. I never thought of that. Interesting.
All right, that's an easy one. For me, same thing. A patch is a patch is a patch, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
and we all shared how we feel about patch cards in general.
Right.
So, adding more of it doesn't really do anything.
No. Right.
Okay, here we go. Let's make it a little bit more difficult. Dual autograph sticker cards.
Wow, this list. It's so specific. You know what? Like, I don't think they're overrated at all, to be honest.
Okay.
Like because I don't
Despite
think anybody
it being
likes
a sticker.
Yeah, because I think everybody has that preconceived notion that it is sticker auto, and you know what I mean. So it's not good. So for me, I'm gonna say it's sticker autos are underrated. For me, it's like logistically impossible, like we talked about on the show, to get on card autos. So what's the next greatest thing? Sticker autos. You get 2 of them. So it's like, yeah, and nobody loves them. So it's like, you know what I mean?
All right. Johnny.
Oh man, you know what I feel about sticker cards.
You can't change it though.
Come on, man. You get 2 of them.
Yeah, like I will admit though, I'm gonna say slightly underrated, because I will, as much as people hate them, I have been tempted and I really like some dual stickers, especially if it's like, I don't know, I don't even know the sets. Like I'm just gonna make it up. Topps Definitive, and it's like Mike Trout, Ken Griffey stickers, like dual, like that. Those cards look nice, and I'm, especially sometimes you look at the price and it's like a PSA 10, and you know how much a Mike Trout and Griffey auto would go for, and you see the price at $2,200 or something like that, right? I'm like, man, that's a beautiful looking card. Yeah, it's sticker, but it's 2 amazing players. I'll say underrated. As much as I hate it, I'll say underrated, because some of those cards are really nice.
Yeah, I hear you about the logistics of getting cards autographed, but I mean, I can't help it. It cheapens the product. Like,
it does.
It's like placing 2 pieces of tape and then they signed it on top of the card. It's not even straight sometimes. You know what I mean?
Speaking of though, okay, think of this. So we're talking clear sticker autos right now, right? Boring. Mm-hmm. In the past, I believe Topps did something different, like with the certified signature, or maybe it was Upper Deck, where it was like more of a hologram piece that they're signing, and you add it to give more value. It's like, where's that?
Like the Mike Trout Bowman Sterling.
Yes, exactly. It's like silver.
That's
it's
true.
like
that looks like it's part of the card. Like sometimes I forget that's a sticker auto.
It is a sticker auto, and that's what made me think of that. Is that Bowman Sterling? I'm like, why do they use clear sticker autos? They should fancy it up. Card market's gotten a little bigger, so Topps spend a little more money, make the card a little prettier, not these clear, transparent stickers.
Maybe they want the transparent stickers because it'll blend in with the cardboard stock.
Yeah, that they want to make it look like it's blended in, right?
But it does the opposite. Like, you're not fooling anyone.
Right.
I like that, Hyung. Okay. Yeah. If it's a hollow sticker auto, it's underrated. But anything else, overrated. Very overrated.
There you go.
Okay. All right, number 3. I don't know if you're familiar with these ones because it just came out. The Panini Prizm Football Manga Insert Cards. Do you see these? It's like a cartoon, Japanese cartoon.
Yeah, not a fan.
I forgot about them.
Yeah, I overrated.
Then?
Yeah, overrated. Yeah. I guess
It's not even good art in my opinion,
Yeah.
to tell you the truth.
You know when it was you know when it was first leaked or announced a little while ago? It was probably a couple of months ago. I was really intrigued. I was like, "Ooh, that's like neat idea. I like that." Right? And now that it's out, I don't like it, man. I like, you know what? I will say I love the Mahomes one is really nice. Of all of the cards in there, I like the Mahomes one.
What did that one look like again? The Mahomes?
It's horizontal, and it looks like he's sort of like in an action pose,
right.
and it kind of looks like he's a little bit more like a superhero, whereas the other ones are just sort of like straight portrait. Yeah, I'm not a fan. Overrated, but I will say I do like the Mahomes though.
Did you hear about what people are saying about the Tom Brady one? You know, the one with the 5 or 6 rings?
Yeah, he's supposed to kind of look like Thanos or something, right?
Yeah, but then someone's like, why is he wearing nail polish? It looks like...
Oh, really? I didn't notice that.
So I could see that. But yeah. Okay, so we all agree, overrated. All right, this might be an interesting one. In-person autograph cards. I know Hyung and I, we had this discussion way back when.
Right.
And
my take on it. And I'm a collector of like autos on just space cards or just cards in general. I like IP autos. Yeah. So I'm all in. I think they're super, super underrated. So underrated that like people think it's like it
ruins the card.
Ruins the card. It's like, what?
Right.
That makes no sense.
It was never meant to be signed, Hyung. It's never meant to be
altered.
Signed.
Technically, it's altered from the purist. We'll call them the purist. People who hate money.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I think they're super underrated as well. Like, I mean, as a hot, like, how could you not like it? You know, like, we're talking sticker. I understand it because from a hobby perspective, I mean, from a ripping perspective, it's not a chase. These aren't chase cards that you really, really wanted to hit and couldn't hit, or you bought it outside. This is, like, this is a normal base card or whatever you happen to get, and you get it signed in person, right? But when you think about what that is, like, that's amazing. Like, you're talking, comparing it to a sticker auto where the player is just not even touching, he's literally signing a whole bunch of little 3M strips and they're adding it onto a card, versus you physically taking somebody's rookie card and giving it to the player. He's touching the card and he's signing it like that.
I wouldn't go and get it signed though. That's just a asterisk. I'll get somebody else to sign and I'd buy it off them. I wouldn't actually wait in line to.
Me too, because I need the PSA 1010. I need the dual 1010s. If I see like 8-8, no, that's not for me.
But that's a big risk, right? Like how they handle the cards.
For sure. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially at games. Oh man. Yeah, like I said earlier, Hyung and I had a discussion, and I know Hyung asked me like offline, what I thought about IP auto cards, and I, to be honest, I told him I'm not a huge fan. Right? Yeah. You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
I didn't think it was altered or anything, but I feel like, I rather, it's not that I rather prefer the non-auto card. I just rather prefer the top certified auto card. You know what I mean?
I get it. The only downside is I hate that they open it up to like modern players, so that's what they do for that, like where they get a minor leaguer to sign all these cards. Right. Like I'm talking about like the Mike Trout PSA 10 update with the auto 10, the Ken Griffey Jr. 89 upper deck with the signature pop 2, like amazing cards, right? But not like the modern where they get everything signed, every card possibly signed, right?
True.
So
right.
That's true. Yeah. And like I've honestly come around. Like I appreciate them way more than I did before. So I'm a convert. And especially with those guys like you mentioned, like the Trouts, or like the players that didn't have autograph cards when they were, rookies. Right. And now you can get them if signed and even graded and authenticated. So I'm a huge fan of those. But yeah, it's an interesting discussion because like you already said, people think it's ruined if you get it signed. All right, we'll wrap up this segment with Topps paper gold parallel cards, which are numbered to the year the card was issued. Right. So Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about, right?
I do. I do. And I love golds, man. I love paper golds. One of my favorite parallels in paper. And I'm going to say underrated still, even though it like a lot of people love it. For me, if you're saying classic OG card, like at least in the modern era, we're talking like the Derek Jeter Topps Gold. You know, it's like, it's always the classic kind of like paper parallel, right? So I personally love like 2018 and up, like 2018, 2019, and that's it. Those are my two favorite like paper parallel gold sets, especially 2018, and I think they're super underrated. I think over time they hold value extremely well. Like look at 2011 Topps Update Trout Gold, right? Like that's a card that is a enormous Trout card, and it's such a classic card as well. So I think the gold parallels are super underrated, even though they're very well desired and liked now. I still believe they're underrated, and they're gonna hold value really well in the future.
Right.
Okay.
So everything that Hyung said is what the hobby believes in the gold, and is why the hobby loves the gold, including myself. I have been drinking that Kool-Aid. But when you strip back hobby logic, it is a gold numbered, pretty highly numbered. It's not super limited.
It's not 50.
It's not 50.
Yeah.
It's not shiny. It's this like stale brown, non-shine paper card. It's not pretty, but we have come to absolutely love this card. But when you compare it to, in terms of like pop count, if like, let's say you take the Topps Chrome version purple, numbered out of 250, or, maybe a not as popular, number card like vintage out of 99, right? I think when you compare it to the scarcity of some of the other sets, I'm going to say that for what it is, for actually what it is for that card, I'm going to say it's a bit over, as much as I love it, I think it's a bit overrated. But with that being said, just because I say it's overrated, it doesn't mean that it has room to come down, because this is hobby logic. If the hobby loves it, and it's numbered out of 5,000, so be it. The hobby loves it, right? So,
Right.
I could see this card continually going up and seeing huge potential. But I will say, I think in comparison to some of the other very, very limited cards of parallels, I think it's a bit overrated.
Okay. Yeah, until the year 5000, it won't be that high of a price. But you know what? I totally agree with you. Like sometimes I go through my, when I rip through Top Series 1 or 2, and then I'm like, oh shit, what's this new parallel? And I turn it back. I was like, oh, it's the gold. Doesn't look like gold on paper, right?
The modern ones are brutal. Ever since 2020, they literally stopped
it's like
caring
copper,
about.
or
It's brutal.
So yeah, I think it's a little bit overrated as well. Although, yeah, if you're gonna, I think it varies from set to set, like you were mentioning, Hyung, right? Like the new ones, the 2022, 21. Like I'm not a fan of any of those, and it seems like you could just get it in like one every 3 packs, and it's usually not like a stud player; it's like a nobody, and you just get them, and it's worth really nothing. So, well, that being said, like yeah, I don't know. I think the value of like the stud players, especially, it's just a little bit overrated for me for what it is, and the 2,000 plus pop count. So, but yeah, I still want the Tatis gold paper parallel. That being said,
it's the same. It's the
so
same
cheap.
concept as the Luca silver.
Yeah,
it's like
totally.
it's like it's
Yeah.
the gold is
Complete
so
hobby
liquid.
logic.
It's so liquid though, and
It's very
that's
liquid, yeah.
that's why a lot of people like it too.
Yeah.
Is
Agreed.
because it's that silver Luca that a lot of people want. There's a sale every day on it, and yeah, it's a classic OG.
Right.
Yep, that's a good point. All right, this was a fun segment. All right, let's go on to our final segment of this show. We call Pick One. This is where we choose 2 cards or 2 sets, and we debate which ones we would rather invest in. All right, Hyung, you want to start things off?
Sure thing. We talked about vintage this episode, so and we mentioned both cards actually. And my childhood memory is, the holy grail of holy grails was the 1952 Topps number 311 Mickey Mantle, a PSA 2.5. A PSA 2.5. I didn't know they had 2.5, but 48K. All right. Versus a 1951 Bowman number 253 Mickey Mantle PSA 6 that sold for 36,000. So are you going for the card or the grade, essentially? And PSA 2.5 must look pretty pretty
beat up.
It's not. Yeah, it's pretty beat up, but 2.5 still pretty nice for that card.
Yep.
Right. Yep. That you're talking.
It's not chump change. 48,000.
It's not. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then a PSA 6, a 1951 Bowman PSA 6 is actually a really nice, really nice condition.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's cheaper. So.
Yep. I'm not wasting any time. This is Fleer Jordan versus Star. We're going Fleer Jordan, man. There's no question. It's 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle. No debate.
Yeah, long-term investment.
I think long-term investment too. I think as much as just like the Jordan, I think as much as people want to say that this is technically the first real, and everybody may agree with that, you can't. It's just too iconic. Like the Mickey Mantle, the Fleer Jordan, it's become too much of an iconic holy grail for a lot of people, and it's not going to change anything. So clearly for me too, no matter what comparison you make of the 52 Mantle versus 51, it's 52 Mantle for sure.
What about you, Clark?
Yeah, I knew where you're going with it, with the grade, and just both iconic cards for sure, right?
Yeah.
You know what? The only thing that really bothers me about the 1951 Bowman?
Horizontal.
It's horizontal. Yeah, and in a PSA slab, it just looks off. You know what I mean? Like, how do I display this? Right. Do I go horizontal or do I go vertical with the label on top? So it's as fickle as that for me. And plus, 1952, it's iconic, right? Like, people recognize that card right away. And I like the portrait. Even if it's badly creased, I'll take that. I'll take the
I love it.
The
crazy thing is you guys didn't even budge on price. It's like
hey,
48,000 a card
is nothing, all right?
Well, not even thinking.
12,000 less.
Yeah.
Hey, like we said last week, when you're in that ballpark, you think differently.
What's 12K, right?
Right.
No, I agree with you guys. Like, for me, it's the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle. I'd rather take a lower grade and buy the card just because it's so iconic. Like, it would be a dream to own one of them. I like, for me, that would be the ultimate like chase. I don't know why. It's just, as a kid, I just love that card. But I would say, there's some value in the 51 Bowman. If you look at the lower grades, some of the lower grade Mickey Mantle Bowmans, very affordable, that can definitely catch up. So I think from an investment standpoint, I think there might be more opportunity in the Bowman 51 on the lower side, because even the PSA 1 Mantles are super expensive, right? So I think over time, a decently graded, 51 Bowman can be a great investment piece for sure. But yeah, I agree with you guys. If it's one card I'm going to pick, it's the 52 Topps.
Cool. Yep. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. All right, boys.
All right.
I'm going to piggyback off of last Tuesday's 1v1, Clark, that you had KD versus Curry the Refractor. And this might maybe help your conviction on your pick, or maybe change it, or nothing. But my 1v1 is going to be more like a hot take, but who's more likely to win another ring, Steph Curry or KD?
Go ahead, Clark.
Oh man, this is so easy for me. It's got to be Steph, right? Steph Curry, man. Like, the Warriors are going to be pretty much the same team going into it next year. They're still highly favored to get back into the finals. And KD, we talked about it earlier, or we talked about it in the Friday show, that we just don't know where he's going. Like, there's so many open-ended questions, and who's he going to play with? Is he chasing a ring? Ask that question again if he gets signed to the Phoenix Suns. Then it's like, okay, there might be more of a coin toss. But I just believe in Steph. I just believe in the Warriors. I believe in Steve Kerr.
Yeah, Steve Kerr is ridiculous. If you there was some ridiculous stat that said he was part of the last X amount of championships in the last 20 years, and it was like majority as a it was as a player and as a coach, in a span of 30 years or something like that.
Yeah, he's a part of like 50% or something.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. That's what you call a winner right there. But anyways, I'm going with Curry, like, hands down, just because you're talking about winning a championship. Curry, like Clark said, he has the team already. He's has the momentum. You make a few little, moves here and there, small moves. But you're talking, it's almost like you're trying to find what sticks. And then you have to build that team chemistry. And then you have to we've seen superstars go to different teams and how that ends up, and we expect so much from them and it's just a disaster, right? So there's even that possibility. To me, I don't see Golden State doing that when they have an established, team that, has been winning. And when you have playoff experience, the amount that the three have, it's gonna be tough to beat, especially as long as Curry stays young, which he looks like he ain't losing a beat at all. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna say Curry hands down for sure.
Ooh, I forgot to mention it is also possible that it could be both, because if KD and Curry go on the same team.
Trick question.
All right, so I'm going to tip my hat to Will, our boy Will, and I'm going to be the contrarian and go with KD. And I'll say this: okay. As much as I don't like KD,
oh, here we go.
He is
3 episodes,
he's just
3 for 3.
Digging yourselves deeper into that hole.
He's just too powerful. Like, okay, yeah, he's going to be a year older, but he's another year in with less injury, a lot more recovered, and removed from the sideshow that was Kyrie Irving and James Harden. And I think he'll be back focused with a team in a situation where he's going into, not making a team, like making a super team, but he's already going, most likely wherever KD's going right now, it's going to be an established, almost their championship kind of team. And he's the final killer piece to put them over the top. And I think wherever he goes, he's just that powerful that he's going to swing the momentum in the favor of that team. Even if it is Toronto, Toronto is, we're all, biased and we're fans. But the one thing we're missing is a killer. We got a pretty solid team, but we're always missing that one killer. The one year we had it was Kawhi. We got a little bit lucky, but we got the ring, right? So I think KD, Phoenix, Heat, Toronto, Golden State, he's that final piece. And 1 year, removed from drama, 1 year healthier. I think wherever he goes, he's got the best chance to win it. Over as much as we do like Curry, I think KD's, as long as he doesn't act like a loser and be petty and get involved with that drama, just focus on basketball. I think it's going to be KD.
Hey, stop beating up on my pal KD, all right? You know what? I would agree with you, except Brooklyn. Like, what happened in Brooklyn? Like, he had a couple of superstars playing alongside them and just didn't work out. The
sideshow, man. I think that had a lot to do with it. I think there was a lot of it seems like there was a lot behind the scenes that a lot of people didn't see, like their synergy and all that stuff. So
fair enough. All right. Okay, let's finish off this show with my 1v1. All right. I have on one side Trae Young, 2018 National Treasures rookie patch auto, number to 99, the grail of Trae Young rookie cards. Raw, which last sold for $11K, versus Zion Williamson, the 2019 Panini Prizm blue parallel, so kind of a color match, number to 199, but graded PSA 10.
I think you're just trying to prove a point here. Like
what point was that? What are you
that's
saying?
not even a comparison. The National Treasures trade, but Trey's so undervalued and Zion's so overpriced at this point. I have no other option but to pick Trae Young, like raw, like.
Oh man, you're still on the Trae Young. Eh? I wanted to
100%.
test you.
question.
And National Treasures, yeah, that's 100%. Raw doesn't matter.
yeah.
National Treasures at that point for me is.
I'll come back a PSA 8 for sure right now.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. So it's gonna be an authentic slab, anyways. Authentic auto 10. You best believe it.
Okay, that was quick.
Yeah. This is there's no question. National Treasures of a superstar player in the league. I'll take that over any player, not just Trae Young. I'll take that over Zion. I think the Zion Prizm Blue is nice and it's a PSA 10. It's just not as special as the National Treasures. Like that is the holy grail. And we're not even talking, it's not a chump player. Like Trae Young is one of the budding superstars in the league. That is ridiculous that it's at 11K. I don't know. Maybe that's expensive. I don't know. But to know that the blue Prizm Zion is the same price as an NT Trae Young. Yeah, no, Trae Young all the way. And those NTs numbered at a 99, they're almost like vintage. I don't think it really matters. The grade doesn't matter. I think, like Hyung said,
I agree.
Authentic slab doesn't have to be graded. It will sell for good money. So, yeah.
Okay. I asked this because, like, honestly, Trae Young gets no love from the hobby, man.
I knew it. I knew that's why.
That's my main point.
And Clark, I didn't see your pick one anyways before, so I was hearing it for the first time. That's why I reacted the way I did. Sorry, I was like, what? What are you talking about?
You know what? I'm going to ask you this same 1v1 next year when his prices still go down. I'm like, guys.
And Zion's exploding.
It's like, how much I love Trae Young, but there's a point where you just gotta hop off the train.
Right.
No, I'm not off the Trae Young train just now.
Okay. You know what? Because I'm with you guys, I'm not off the Trae Young train either. I believe in him. Obviously, I'm gonna go with the Trae Young RPA, but yeah, my main point was like, at what point do we need to hop off Trae Young and go for the real potential high upside of can you get more higher upside than Zion Williamson, or in terms of hype than Zion Williamson right now?
I mean, it's still a dangerous game to play. Just Trae versus Zion. It's not even a question for me. I think that's the biggest thing, and then National Treasures on top of that.
Right.
The blue Prizm's nice though. I do like the Zion
sweet.
Prizm. I think that's a great looking card.
Right.
Yeah, like his pose in the Panini Prizm.
Yeah.
For Zion.
Yeah,
that's a sweet
him and
card.
Jaw. Like I think that set is one of the best Prizm sets.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. Now, serious question before we end off. 11K is not necessarily our wheelhouse in terms of budget, but if the Trae Young NT was like 9, 8,
I'm in.
Right? Wouldn't like even
That's
I'm not.
deal.
I don't even have a Trae Young, and I think I would sell off a bunch of my big boy cards to go after
You'd
that.
sell all the base loose
to go
Roberts
at like
that-
9,000.
that you
I would. So it just seems like 11.
And then you would have $50. Then what?
Jeez.
You
Yeah,
gotta sell more.
but 11 is low. But I mean, if it got into like 4 digits, NT Trae Young, oh man,
Yeah.
I think all three of us we would legitimately be in on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe we should make a group purchase.
Okay, I'll
And then
put it on the watch list.
it's our Cards to the Moon project.
Yeah.
Let's see if we win or lose over a span of this podcast.
I like it. I like
Yeah.
it. All right. With that, we'll end off the show. Thanks again so much for all our listeners and subscribers. As always, we appreciate you coming back week after week to hear us talk about sports cards. And if you haven't given us 5 stars and you enjoyed the episode, we really appreciate it. And we'll see you again next Tuesday for another new episode. Talk to you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.